The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why they actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations. That's forming a
Good evening and welcome back. This is Lowe's Moore, and I want to say welcome to the Blueprint Podcast. Man, I'm really excited tonight again. I see that's my favorite word every Sunday evening. I'm always excited about doing the show. I'm always excited about my guests, man, and so I'm always excited that you guys take the time out of your busy schedule and you get on and you watch and you make comments. And remember, this is interactive. So if you got a comment or a question for the show, or you got a question for the guest, man, just you'll see it at the bottom. Just put your comment in and we'll answer your questions as best we know how. And so again, thank you. And I see that everyone has made their way through, right? These last few weeks of the weather. They said the groundhog saw a shadow, and so we got another 6 weeks. And I was like, man, I don't know what that's all about, man. We gonna get 6 weeks of winter anyway, man. I don't remember. Did anybody out there remember when the groundhog didn't see a shadow and winter ended? No, it didn't. No, it took another 6 weeks. So, that's just a tradition, man. I think they shining a light on that groundhog, man, so he could see his shadow, so we could see it and say we got another 6 weeks when we already know we got another 6 weeks. So anyway, again, thank you for your support, of the Blueprint, man. And so somebody stole my pebble. I always throw my pebble in the pond, right? Each and every week, we expecting the ripple effect of the show. We expect the impact tonight. We expect the impact to continue. Thank you for all you who sometimes you don't get on the show that night, but I see the numbers rising all out throughout the week, man, and your comments and different things like that. So I wanted to say thank you for your support. And I'm going to drop this. I got a little piece in my hand. I'm going to drop this pebble because that's what I do. I dropped it and I'm getting ready to roll here. And I want to say thank you. I don't know if you can see this. Let me slide up a little bit and see if you can see my shirt here. This is a Blueprint shirt, and you see Phil Jackson on there, and you see Ray Boy. That's my cousin Ray Boy right there in the yellow. And then Coach Tompkins right there. College coach, he's on there. And so Ray Boy, my cousin, is a big Lakers, LA Rams. He's LA everything, right? And when I brought him on the show with Phil Jackson, man, he was so excited for even now, and this was months ago, but he made up this shirt and sent it to me and thanked me. We had he had some little health issues, and man, when people are down, one of the most important things you need encouragement, right? And once I found out, and many of us found out, we started to pray right away. And then I got on the call and had conversations with them and stuff like that. Because that's what we do. We family, not just because he's my cousin, right? Even if it's a friend, or if you hear of somebody else that you want to be encouraging, by a call or text or something on Facebook, just to encourage people, man, when they're going through. And so I want to thank him for the t-shirt. I wanted to show it off, and but I know he's rooting. I mean, he's rooting for the LA Rams for the Super Bowl, man. His whole man cave is gold and purple and blue and gold. I mean, he's going to be excited. We will not be able to say anything to him if the Rams win next week, man. Nothing. You're not going to be able to say anything to him, man. And all them people that have been talking junk to him, they won't be able to say a word to him. So I want to say thank you, Ray Boy. Thank you, my cousin. I appreciate you. And so I'm really excited for him that the Rams is there. I wish that we had, a New York team. I thought we was going to at least get one. I thought the Bills was going to sneak in there, man. The hitting New York team was going to get in there, and we can claim them. Hey, we at least have one New York team that got in there, but they didn't get in either. I felt bad for them also. So let me jump right into this. Right, let me jump right into this, and let me give you my book of the week. Right, and hopefully I'll have a discussion about this with my this evening's guest. 20 Beautiful Men. Right now, I didn't get this one yet, but I'm definitely going to get this, and I want to hear the stories. Several stories that these men give about the importance of manhood and fatherhood and all those different wonderful things. And I'm sure we're going to have a conversation with my guest about this book in particular. So it was on the bestsellers list, right? And so many of you probably didn't hear about it, but hey, if it was on the bestsellers list, somebody heard about it. Now you know about it. Now go out and get it. That's what I say. Go out and get that book. Build your library. Every time I give a book each and every week, I want you to build your library. All right. And the word of the week is fatherhood. Right. I mean, that's important. You're going to hear a lot about fatherhood tonight. For me, man, man, I don't know where I would be, man. If I was without my wife, number one. And number two, if I was without my kids, wow, that'd be something, man. I don't know what I would do with myself, man. I really can't see myself just being a single guy, no kids, no wife, just hanging out. Yeah, I'm a family guy, so this is important to me, and so fatherhood is extremely important, and we're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So that's a very powerful word, fatherhood. We're not talking about somebody who's baby daddy, right? We're talking about somebody who has a child and is responsible for them. So fatherhood is a very powerful word. And then the Pierce Harper affirmation quote moment is, my children are my responsibility, and which includes my wife as well. But if I laid down and I had children, I'm responsible. Ain't no getting out of that, right? You are responsible. Own up to it, right? Be a real man and be responsible for those kids. So, and then my music for this music and movie of the week, I Can Only Imagine. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but these guys are amazing, man. And if you get a chance, I Can Only Imagine. What's the name of the group? Mercy Me. Yeah. Mercy Me is the name of the group. If you haven't seen, there's a movie out called I Can Only Imagine. Right. And you should check that movie out. And that movie out, that's along with the music. And then there's Kevin Hunt's The Fatherhood. I guess when we first heard about that, Kevin Hart, The Fatherhood, right, movie. And, we always see Kevin Hart in the light of, him being funny, he's always being comedic, and you didn't think maybe he couldn't play anything seriously, but he did an excellent job on this movie right here. I mean, it was just truly, truly amazing, man. And again, and finally, I'm going to say two more things, but we want to do a shout out. Now, they give us a month, but the reality of it is that Black history is every day. every day is Black History, but we have a month. And so I want to do a shout out on celebrating Black History Month in February 2022. But for me, man, I appreciate, number one, not only do I appreciate my culture, but I appreciate the culture of everyone, right? And whatever your culture is, right, it's every day, man, not just 1 month, right? You celebrate it every day. I celebrate Black History every single day, right? And I think that's important. So, and then finally, you heard me show some books, and you've heard me talk a lot about the law of attraction, um, uh, the importance of what we call, what is it? Rhythm, frequency, and vibration. You hear me talk about frequency and vibration all the time. Back about maybe 6 or 7 years, I got introduced to a gentleman. I don't really know him, but I listen to something, a meditation or something every single day by him. He's the one that sparked something in me in regards to my sound, to the frequency of my life, and the vibration, and how to change my paradigm, and how to shift my paradigm. And so he was so vibrant. I've just heard, I was on a couple of sessions back in fall and also in the summertime, and he had these free sessions, and I was on listening to him and do the training and stuff like that. And I just thought he was will live forever. You know, he was 87 years old, and he just recently passed. And I wanted to say, man, he's going to be missed. Just missed his wisdom. And that's Mr. Bob Proctor, right? I don't know if you know anything about Bob Proctor, man, but he's all over YouTube, man. And he's the truth when it comes to the law of attraction, frequencies, and vibration. So rest in peace, Bob. Yeah, I know a lot of people that know him and speak so highly of him, but he was just an amazing guy, man. I know when he left here, he was still dreaming. He was left here. I know he already put some stuff in place, right? He had a bunch of blueprints that I know that people are will continue to work on, as I believe that the Procter and Gamble organization will continue to grow in spite of that, because Bob left an awesome legacy and foundation. So without further ado, right, we're going to show this highlight here, and then I'm going to introduce my guest for this evening, and we're going to jump right in and we're going to have a good time.
Prior to Obama, that's 8 years. But I've been around this fatherhood work personally for 34 years. And my 34 years of expertise is the fact that I was a dad for 34 years. Yeah. So I just want to say that through my years of being a dad, being an activist around how do we push this work forward, this conference, and I have to say this very honestly, I've heard more in today, and as I look at the program for tomorrow, than what I've seen and heard of the conferences and the programs that I've been around for 8 years with the president, but also in my 34 years of being around this work, pushing the importance of fatherhood.
Wow, this is tonight's guest, Thabiti Boone. We know him. Hey, everybody knows him as Boone.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good, man. I'm just honored to now have my turn on your show. I mean, and hearing about the blueprint, seeing the blueprint, all your distinguished guests, and just your conversation and your concept, man. You know, I just applaud you, and I've been knowing you for so many years, man. You know, not just through the basketball circle, but just through, you know, a lot of the work that Allen Houston's been doing, a lot of work that, just been going on around, just how do we uplift the lives of young people, and you're a great father. And so I'm just honored, man, to get that call from you last week. As you know, the joke was I was hacked. So I said, Lowe's calling me. Here's another one telling me I've been hacked. He said, no. I'm calling you to now be on the show. So I said, that's cool. So yeah, man, I'm just happy to be on the show and just talk fatherhood and just talk about, manhood and spirituality, and just, let's just vibe and talk to each other, and also just give you a chance to get to know me a little bit better as well, just from, some of the stuff and how I grew up in the streets of Brooklyn and things like that. So I'm just honored, man, to just talk with you tonight and vibe with you tonight, man, on your show, The Blueprint.
Well, thanks, man, for taking the time out of your busy schedule, man. And I know this afternoon, man, you were a part of the Knicks event this afternoon, and then you rushed home to jump on the show. So, man, thank you, man. Appreciate you, man. Definitely. Yeah. And so, three of my important questions as I start off the show is, number one, the importance of family, right? The importance of faith, and the importance of education. And so if you were to just elaborate on, growing up, mom, dad, and, the whole nine yards, man, let us get to know you. And yeah, because you're going to be a blessing to someone out here.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So, my journey, and let me just start it off this way. Let me enter it this way. Two ways. In the clip that you just showed, remember I mentioned the 34 years I've been involved in this work?
Right. Yes.
So the 34 years represented the age of my daughter.
Wow.
So from the time, and I always say this to the fathers and to the men, anytime you become a father, now you're entering that phase where you're becoming a man with your own family that's connected to the children that you're producing. So that automatically puts you as a leader and an activist in this work. So you don't need research and data and going to colleges and universities to study this work. By the simple fact that you're a father, and as you said, earlier with your quote, that the child is the responsibility of the father, that instantly gives me the credibility when I'm speaking at conferences and events. So when I use that word 34 years, that means my 34 years of the time she was born and I took on that responsibility qualifies me more than any research to be an expert on fatherhood. So that's right. Something I really want fathers and men to understand. You don't get credentialized by the academia and the studies. You get credentialized by the fact that you give birth to the children that you produce, which now becomes your own family, which is an extension of the family that you come from, your lineage. And so for me, I was born in Bed-Stuy. I don't know if people know too much about Brooklyn, but Bed-Stuy is like central Brooklyn. It's the heart of Brooklyn, whether it's Jay-Z, the Biggies of the world. So I was born in Bed-Stuy, but I was raised in East New York, Brownsville. And just so you know, from a basketball standpoint, Lowe's, Brownsville just put out some of the best ball players from Fly, Jocko, all those guys that you played against, Jeff Houston, all those guys came out of Brownsville.
That's right.
And so, but my entry into my family was not the norm. So my mother was 13 when she got pregnant with me. She was 13.
Wow.
My father was 21 years old, who impregnated my mother. So that dynamic of even the formation of a parental family just don't make sense. That's just dysfunctional right there.
Right.
And so now here it is. My mom is 13. She gives birth to me when she turns 14. My dad is 21. Now, my grandmother told my father he had a choice. Either you're gonna marry my daughter, and she was very spiritual, Lo. And I disagree with my grandmother, but I get it. She told my father, as a grown man, you're gonna marry my daughter, or you're going to go to jail for statutory rape of my daughter. And just put it in context, both families knew each other in the same brownstone. So on one floor was my father's family. The other floor was my mom's family. So my dad was one of them old dudes looking at this young girl, figuring out how you're going to get the attention of this young little girl, going to school every day, and he's a grown man. And apparently they got together, they connected and hooked up, and then I came. And they did get married. But the marriage, so my mom was 16 when she got married. And like I said, my father was about 23, 24 at the time. And so what happened, Lowe's, and again, you know, not to take up too much time, but just to give the context of, you know, family to me, I was born into a very dysfunctional family, domestic violence. My father he was a hustler. My father had to perm. You know, my father came out of the influence of that black exploitation era, that whole Superfly era. My uncle was a pimp. My father was a womanizer in the street, dice game, crap games, pool halls, you know, shootouts. That was my father. He was a street guy. And he married my mother. And my mother, you know, like, you know, he didn't really treat her as a wife, as a little 16-year-old. She was still a child. So it caused my father to treat my mother as if she was a child. So whenever my mother stepped out of line or didn't do things according to him, you know, next thing you know, he's beating on her. So I grew up in a home where it was nothing for me at night to hear the arguing, the fighting, getting up in the morning, seeing the blood and all this kind of stuff. And the police is always at the house. So family, in my immediate family, it just didn't make sense to me. Now, my grandmother was my sense of family. In the projects where we grew up at, we had a sense of family. You saw families, but you also saw a lot of dads not around. And when you saw the dads around, you never saw them actually with the wives and mothers are doing family things in the projects. You never seen family outings or family things. So our thing was just basketball and hanging out in the neighborhood. But in terms of like family, you didn't see it. So it became almost like a unreal vision of what that looks like. But that's pretty much been, you know, the shape of my family, my cousins and relatives. We were close, but the sense of what we would call a traditional family, security, protection, joy, affection, outings, spending time together, you know, you remembering those life lessons from, you know, your parents and things like that, fond memories. I don't have too much of that. All I have is like a lot of that negative stuff. Like I said, my mom rarely spent much time with my education. I was a smart kid in school, you know, academically. I was always in the special classes, you know, doing very well, but I never had my mom at a lot of my school activities. And then my father hardly ever came around to anything. And he only came to one of my basketball games. And only time both my parents ever showed up for anything was my high school graduation. And that was pretty much it. But was kind of the family. I didn't start really absorbing, understanding family till when I became a teenage father, taking my daughter with me to college to raise her, you know, as a dad. Then I started really understanding fatherhood. I started reading about fatherhood. I started studying other families and reading books about it. And, you know, so I started learning fatherhood, you know, in family from that angle. But I will say this, you know, back to your question, the other question about faith, Lo, based on how I grew up with all the traumatic things that I saw from just the violence in the home, out of the home. And the other thing is at the age of 12, I watched my mother attempt suicide. So in the projects where we live, it was, you know, 7-story building. And so my mom decided, just all the misery and stuff that she was going through, she decided she didn't want to live anymore. And she jumped off the building. And so I was playing basketball in the park, and one of the kids said, "Yo, your mom is at the top of the roof." So I dropped the basketball, run across the street around the housing project building. And as I'm looking up, my mother's jumping off the building. And she lands and just breaks everything up in her body. And so here's the faith thing. Here's the faith part, Lowe's. And then I end it in. When I tell that story that my mom jumped off a 7-story building, and we just saw what happened to the USA last
Mm-hmm.
week when she
Yes.
jumped off the building. So that brought back memories to me. So my mom landed, and she's not that tall. She landed on her legs and her body like collapsed. So her legs just instantly broke. And so she was laying on the ground, blood everywhere. But check this out about the faith. She actually lived.
Mm.
And when I tell that part, because they think, oh, she died. Oh man, that, because most people don't live when they jump off a building.
That's right.
She actually lived. And so that was the faith part, that I think God did not want her life to end that way. God didn't want all the things in my 12 short years, from how I was born, all that what I was seeing, a lot of the gifts and talents that I had, the academics and the potential and the progress. God has a way of seeing how he wants to position certain people in their lives. And God has a way of protecting people through the faith. And through my grandmother being a praying grandmother, through her faith, I knew my mom jumping off that building and living, there was more of a purpose and reason, and it was faith that was driving that. So my mom ended up surviving. I didn't know what a nervous breakdown was. She had a nervous breakdown. My mom had to spend about 6 months in a mental institution. She had to wear a body cast from like the chest down for about another 6 months. And we were all, my brother, myself, my sister and brother was almost subjected to going into a foster home. And my aunt had to come in and take care of us and stuff like that. So I had to get through all of that through basketball and faith and driving myself academically, kept pushing me. And my mom jumping off the building made news in the neighborhood. Everybody knew, because I was a very popular ball player. Everybody knew it was my mother. And when I went back to my middle school, everybody knew that it was my mother that jumped off the building. So I had to kind of sort through all that emotion, all that kind of stuff, Lowe's, to get through that. So through faith, my academics, through basketball, it kind of just drove me through that, and really understanding that family got to be better than this. And so my question, my desire was to say, you know what? I got to make sure when it's my turn to be a family member, I got to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, to make sure that I understand, the purpose and value of family from what I didn't come through. And so, family to me is something that is so sacred and important, especially when it comes to our children. And when children don't have a sense of family with two parents, or at least two working parents, co-parenting in the home, surrounding those children with love and protection and guidance, we continue to see the kind of things that we see, as you know, Lowe's, the pitfalls that a lot of these kids are facing. And that's the kind of work that we dealt with President Obama, at the White House around this whole issue of fathers. So that's just kind of my beginning and upbringing, and my journey around family, and and how basketball came in, the faith of my grandmother, the faith of God, just saying there's got to be a better way than this. But that's pretty much is my family. So in terms of just answering that question, I know I did a lot, entering that. But that's just how I came into this whole thing of family, man, which wasn't cool.
Yeah. My wife was over here talking about. My wife was over here, got her crying, man. But and talk a little bit about, because most young Black men, and I don't know what the percentages are, but I just knew I grew up in a single parent home. And dysfunction and domestic violence and all that stuff. So as a young man, and the basketball does help. So talk a little bit about being in that, going through that process, and how basketball helped, and talk about, man, how good were you, man?
Yeah. Well, I had another book. I should have sent you that one. Rise to the Occasion, Playing Sports, Playing Life, Winning the Game of Life. That's another book that I wrote.
Well, as I got to get that one.
Yeah. So as you know, Lo, in the urban communities, in the projects, it's either you're a gangster, the hustler, or you're a ball player. And this was kind of a little bit more predating, the hip hop era. But all I knew was in the neighborhood was the hustlers and the gangsters, but they also played basketball. So for young boys, our identity is tied into our street credibility. And in the hood, unfortunately, but fortunately, that identity came through the popularity of the street guys. And it also came through the popularity of the playground basketball courts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I hung around those courts and I'm trying to get a sense of how can I fit in. The courts are like your protection. If not, the gangs will come at you, people come at you. They think your self-esteem is on the line. So I just always just hang around between the dice games and hanging out, and watching the older guys play. And then one day, my cousin, never forget this, my cousin Mike, I was 8 years old. He put the basketball in my hand. He was in the park. And I was just, dribbling the ball. And you know how it is as you a player, that feeling when that ball first go in that basket. So I was dribbling the ball. I would miss it. And then it finally went in low. And the feeling that I got of that basketball going in, it took away all that negative stuff that I would see every day, all that other stuff going on. And just to hear them, man, that felt good. And I would practice and practice and practice. And then all the older guys would see me practice and playing. And then that developed into my confidence, and they giving me confidence. And the more they were giving me confidence, I was kind of saying, you know what, I think I could do this. I can do this because they saying I'm good. And I would always practice. Then the other thing is, when I knew they was out there, I would practice hard on purpose so they could see my skill level. Because the whole thing in the hood was the little guys couldn't play on the main courts. We had to get the garbage cans and play on another side of the courts. So in order to get drafted to the big courts, you had to be seen and get drafted where the guys know, okay, come on, we need an extra player. So it was another guy that did it. Junior was always the one they always picked. I said, man, I got to earn my right. And it didn't happen until I was in like my sophomore year of high school. I finally got my call up. And that's when I knew, basketball for me was definitely heading in the right direction. But from 8 years old, the ball was in my hand. I started playing CYO at 10 years old. I tried out for my elementary school team in the 5th grade. And let me tell you this, and I said this in my other book, I didn't get picked because I was too overly confident. I thought my attitude was, I was too into me. So I never forget the gym coach telling me, he said, man, let me tell you something, you're talented, but it's not just your talent that's going to have you be successful in basketball. You have to be coachable and have the right attitude. And I never understood the connection as a 5th grader of what that meant. Right. I just thought that you got to come in and do your game and play hard and play well, and you're good to go, because everybody knew me in the neighborhood, even at the school. But I didn't make it. So I got cut in the 5th grade, but it allowed me to learn a very valuable life lesson going into 6th grade. I was very good in the 7th, 8th grade. I played AAU. I don't know if you remember Coach Gil Reynolds.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
You know how hard he was. So Gil was like well known. He coached Bernard King, Al King, Al Houston, all the great players. So I ended up playing for the Vanguard All as AAU program, 7th grade, 8th grade. And then I ended up going to Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn, playing for the legendary coach. That's the high school right there. Legendary coach John Bunyan. He put out some great teams, great ball players. And so I was the only freshman and sophomore to play varsity at the school. And if you play freshman and varsity in PSCL and Brooklyn citywide high school basketball, you really are something. And so my era was Pearl Washington, Mark Jackson, Walter Berry, John Sally, Lorenzo Charles, Kenny Smith. I came through those guys. The great Alexander Hamilton teams, of course, you're very familiar with Coach Ray Haskins. So I played with those kind of guys, the Marbury brothers. I played with those guys. And so my whole thing was, my goal was to play and show out against those guys. And I never said this, but I had to come up with a gimmick. And so one of the street guys was like, yo, you got to make a name for yourself. You got to do something that's different. And let me tell you what I did, Lowe's. That was crazy. I used to wear Mix Max sneakers.
Way back then.
I used to wear Mix Max sneakers, a different Nike color and a different other Nike color or Adidas color or another Adidas color. And I had an afro back then. Of course, you had your afro. And the girls, the cheerleaders, used to braid my hair. So I was this flashy guy with the braids, with the mixed max sneakers. So everybody was like, who's the kid with the mixed max sneakers? You know, so then I had to make sure the game backed up me wearing mixed max sneakers, because I became known as that. And I tell you, man, you know, I was really, really on the AU circuit as well in high school, really doing my thing. And then in high school, my goal was, you know, I played 5-star and I played AU, but I knew competing against all those other talented guys was going to be tough for me to like get offers. So the second game of my high school, I had 54 points, Lo. No 3-point line at that time.
Right.
54 points. That hit everybody. Like, yo, Boone dropped 54, the second game of the season. So I said, I'm ready. So in our conference that year, it was Boys High School, Pearl, Washington, Alexander Hamilton with Jerry Ice Reynolds and all of them, and Andre Sky Irvin, Beetle, Washington. Then we had Lincoln, Steph Marbury's brother, Don Marbury. I think you played against Eric Marbury.
Eric, yeah.
Who went to Georgia. Then we had Canarsie with John Sally. Then we had Brooklyn Tech with Lorenzo Charles, who wanted to
North Carolina State.
I was just that whole season, man. I averaged, you know, close to 30-something points a game.
Wow.
And yeah, man, I you know, and I'm only 5'8", 5'9", so I averaged about 38 points a game, 30 points a game. And I also knew when we was playing against the Pearls and all the top guys, I knew I had to bring my game to another level. Wow. So as you show that picture, my scholarship was to the University of Florida. Things didn't work out because I had my daughter. So I transferred back, and the picture that you just showed was the Westchester Community College team, that team right there.
That looked like Rasul Saladin.
Huh?
Looked like Rasul Saladin over there, Ricky Stanley.
Oh, you know, that's right. You know Ricky.
Yeah, and Rasul looked like Rasul, but I don't
and you should know Rodney Abrams.
Of course I know Rodney. Yeah, we played against each other in Greenberg Community Center.
Yes, and I think you played against his older brother too.
Oh, of course, George.
Yes. So that team, that was like me kind of getting a fresh start, you know, going back to Westchester Community College, and that team was almost like an AAU program. So we had, other than Rodney and Ricky, most of the other guys like us came from the Riversides and the Gauchos and the top programs in New York City. So we went 36-2 that year. And we lost to Walter Berry and them. Before he went to St. John's University, he played at San Jack, those powerhouse teams. And so we lost to Walter Berry and them in the championship. And so that team ended up being inducted into the JUCO College Hall of Fame. And so we got inducted in 2010. So that was one of my best college teams I ever played on, you know, and we're still in touch with each other. Of course, Rodney passed away and a few others. And again, the guys are still in touch with each other. But again, even during that season, and that was the same year, Lowe's, that my daughter was, you know, born during that same transition time. And so I was juggling between basketball, parenting, academics. I'm trying to figure out, did I make mistakes, you know, with all this stuff going on in my life? You know, what is my purpose? You know, am I, you know, messing up? It's like, you know, like what is going on with me? And I was totally lost, man. And so it was Ricky and the guys who was kind of keeping me going and keeping my head straight, you know, during that season. And so again, but that team will always be one of my, you know, cherished, you know, teams I played on, because, and you played on the highest level, man. So to go to any Final Four, playing any college championship, to be in anybody's Hall of Fame, you know, that says a lot about, you know, your accomplishments and the kind of, you know, success and achievements that you had. And I think for me, what basketball gave me, you know, and has given me, and even the work that I'm doing with the Knicks, basketball has given me almost like a balance against all the stuff that I've been through and against. So basketball, as you know, becomes family, your teammates, lifelong friends, they like brothers to you. And so it gave me that sense of connection and belonging and the kind of love that I normally just didn't get from the hood. And so so that's what, you know, basketball's given me, and the success that I've gotten from the game. I think I could have done more, and I think I could have gone further. But again, because I was a teenage dad and juggling all of that stuff, and I just didn't really put as much in as I thought I should have put in, because of all the stuff that was going on. But I have no regrets, in terms of what basketball has given me. But I wish I would have kind of just kept pushing myself, to go a little bit higher, a little bit more, just to see whether that potential, NBA level or whatever the next level may be, that I can at least show that, I was able to at least compete on that level.
But and so, I mean, Westchester 2-year school, did you go further? I mean, did you go to the next level after that?
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's the life-changing moment. And I was a black kid in college, and I remember talking to the coaches. I got a daughter, and I want to be responsible for my daughter. And their reaction, Lowe's, was put her up for adoption. We give you a scholarship. There's no place for, a child on campus, or at least having the impression that Black fatherhood and a young teenage guy, in their mind, that doesn't fit the narrative. What do you mean you want to take responsibility? What do you mean you want to bring your child to school? What do you mean you want to step up and still, be a student athlete with a child? And their mind is, no, that's not going to work. And in their mind is, basketball was more important. And again, you're looking at fatherhood back in, mid 80s versus fatherhood and some of the stuff now. But even now, you still see the certain way of how white kids are treated in certain circumstances and how Black kids are treated in certain circumstances. And I truly believe, Lowe's, that if I was a white kid with the talent that I had, and also being a good student academically, I think they would have found a way to still make it happen. So when I left Westchester, looking at the 4-year schools again, they kept telling me no about my daughter, the D1 schools. So I had to now, once again, make another decision. I got my daughter. What do I do? And so one day I was going to give it up, just give up basketball, because I wasn't going to give up my daughter. Right. To make that choice over my daughter. And a lot of people, and let me say this, a lot of people thought I was stupid. The guys in the hood, man, you play basketball too long, that mother set you up. Guys don't take care of their children, man. Basketball, because a lot of my hoop dreams, they were feeding off of it as well. And they saw me being a young father and the mother walking away and abandoning, the child. My family and the people in the neighborhood and people thought that was getting in the way. And again, their mind is like, you're successful, you're achieving. This child just happened to come and be a distraction. Give the child up. The child should not get in the way. But my instincts, going back to what I said to you earlier about family, I didn't want to keep that vicious cycle and generation of, how does men keep producing children and don't take responsibility? How's it that I can come from so much against fatherhood and against family to me and all the toxic and bad stuff that I saw? Now it's my turn. How can I turn around and watch all that I've been through and then do the same thing? So I said, nah, I got to do the right thing and stick with my daughter. So I was sitting in my mom's living room in the projects, and I just get a call from this school, Rochester Tech University. I didn't want to go. He said, I'm gonna offer you a scholarship. I know you're good. You may not want to come to us. And I said, but I have a daughter. I have a daughter. And he said, you know what? I'll take a chance on you with your daughter. So I ended up going up there, to play ball and do that. But I got to be honest, well, I just didn't feel the same. From a talent perspective, I felt I should have stayed in a Division I level. I didn't feel the talent was good enough for me on that D2 level, D3. I just didn't feel good about that. And I made all tournament a few times. I did well. I just noticed the mentality of the team just wasn't what I was used to. So I ended up losing interest, around that, and just didn't really finish out, my senior year the way I wanted, because I just wasn't feeling it. And I tried to do the what was the league that Muzzy Bowes and all them played in, the summer league, the USBL.
Yes.
You remember that league?
Yeah, I played in some. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
At
So
Westchester Golden Apples.
and then they had the Long Island Surfs and all those different teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like saying, okay, let me try out for them and try to see what I can do. But I'll be honest, man, all that NBA stuff and trying to pursue that, and whether my dreams were still there, I tell you, man, it burnt me out. And I said, you know what, my daughter is more important. Let me kind of just figure this thing out. I think basketball gave me as much as it's going to give me. And then I never forget, my coach told me, he said, I never forget, he said, now, if you was Michael Jordan, you 6'6", you could do anything with 10 children. He said, man, but you 5'9", you're not on that level. So people are not going to take that chance on you with a child. It hurt me when he said that. I understood why he said that. He's giving me a sense of reality of me trying to still pursue why coach is not interested in my talent. And why can't you just take on the fact that part of my ball player instincts is that I can compete to be a good dad. I can handle my daughter. I can figure this thing out.
Right.
But they kind of rejected that. And so I just got taken back by that. I understand what they were saying, but they just didn't take a chance on me, and that bothered me and hurt me. And I never forget when coach told me that. He said, man, you're not a Michael Jordan. And let's just be real about that. If you're Michael Jordan, they will bend over backwards for you. But you're 5'8", 5'9", you're not going to get much. I said, but coach, where's the character and the fact that I'm still trying to pursue my academics? I think I'm a great student athlete. I can bring a lot to a team. And I just have a child. What's the problem with that? And I think from a white coach perspective and a white institution with these colleges,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they fully understood that was about a moral thing, a humanity thing. They say we got to look beyond basketball and let's continue to help this kid, along the way. And I just didn't have that kind of support. So I just ended up going to Rochester Tech University. I liked it for as much as I could, and I just didn't like it. And then I was feeling the pressure from the other guys. Like I was supposed to be the D1 guy. I'm supposed to, be the guy that may have an opportunity, for the next level with the league. So all that pressure started messing up my purpose, my sense of self-esteem, my sense of identity, who I am. And so I went into a very deep depression at that time, Lo. And I kind of lost myself because I kept comparing. Pearl is at Syracuse, Mark is at St. John's, Barry's at, St. John's. I'm like, man, I done messed up, and so I just couldn't seem to pick up a basketball. I couldn't do anything. And I just felt like, wow, I was looking at my daughter like, did I do the right thing? Did I not do the right thing? So, but I always felt my daughter, Lowe's, and I stop on this. I always felt Kim was looking at me. Don't you mess this up. I'm bigger than any basketball. I'm bigger than anything that we're doing. God got this. Faith got this. We're going to be all right at the end. Don't mess this up. So
wow.
I came to grips and said, you know what? That air the ball, for me as a ball player, I get it. It's done. But the biggest thing is I took on the responsibility of my daughter. And can I say one thing, Lo?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you how I knew, and this is how we know our divine purpose is in place. So while I was going through all of that, years later, all the NBA guys, all my peers came back and said, you did the right thing, man. I became more admired for that choice and taking on that stance and handling that competition more than staying on the court.
Wow.
And when I started hearing that, on top of Boone was a hell of a ball player. Boone was a hell of a ball player. Boone was one of the top point guards in the city. So when Allen Houston at the Garden, he'll introduce me to people. He said, yeah, y'all don't know, Boone's one of the top players coming out of New York City. Or I'm with Kenny Smith and some of the guys. Yo, Boone's one of the top guys. What that did was it gave me a sense of pride to say, you know what? It may didn't go as high as I wanted. But the fact that I had some of the top players and top achievers give me that credential to know that given the right circumstance, I think I could have did it on that level. But they gave me that sense of purpose that I did do the right thing. I'm respected for doing the right thing. And it made my basketball achievements and who I am as a basketball player that much more powerful to those guys into the basketball world. That to me, at the end of the day, is the coolest thing.
Yeah, I want to say, man, I commend you. Awesome, man. Because, yeah, you know, you probably had a lot of guys who had children who were playing basketball who made the other decision
Yep.
to not be responsible.
Yep.
And so I do commend you, man. I salute you, man. You knew that.
And you know what
And
everybody asks me when I see everybody? How's your daughter? How's your daughter? Because everybody knew when she was little all the way up. That's my pride and joy. And so that is really, really has been, the coolest thing. And I always tell fathers, if you want to see God's truest blessings in your life, be in the life of your children. You're going to see what God will do for you just by taking on that responsibility. Everything that's supposed to happen for you will work out. But take on that responsibility with your children, and God just going to open up the doors of blessings. It may not be what you always want to be, but God is going to put you where you need to be. Just stay in front of your kids. And I had to learn that, the hard way. But again, it was just, I have no regrets on that.
yeah, and I commend you 100%, man, on taking responsibility, man, and being the father that you are. And before I go transition, I want to digress for just a moment. And I had a moment in Brooklyn. I mean, because my cousin, his name was Bobby, and he lived in Brooklyn. But I had two experiences in Brooklyn. Number one, many people, I don't know if many people knew, I had an older sister, right? And my father, before he married my mom, he had a daughter. And so my stepsister, Eveline, and my father's sister and husband, my father's half sister. Your half sister. Yeah, she's I said my. Well, not stepsister. Yeah, not stepsister, but half sister. Yeah. Well, they lived in Brooklyn in the housing projects. It's only like 3 floors. I don't know if there's a bunch of housing projects that had like 3 floors, and my grandmother lived there, and my father's sister and her husband lived in a house there. And every Friday, my father, when we were younger, my father used to pack us up and take us to Brooklyn. As soon as he get off work, put my mom in the car, my brothers in the car, and we head to Brooklyn, man. And they would stay with my Aunt Penny and Uncle Aaron, and then I would go over to my grandmother's to the projects over there and hang out with my sister, man. And we were throwing. Remember those? What's it called? Tops. Remember tops?
Yes.
Yes. It'd be freezing. We loved seeing each other. It'd be freezing out there. We'd be out there in the middle of the night just throwing them tops, flipping the things out there and stuff like that. It was just it was just an awesome experience to be in Brooklyn every weekend. And then I think my aunt had, man, she had mad kids, man. I mean, she had like 14 of them jokers, man. I mean, she had a lot of us. I had a lot of cousins in Brooklyn, so it was a good time. And then my cousin Bobby, on my mother's side, we used to just travel down there, man. I remember his mother was crazier than, but she was the nicest person until she had something. And then, she turned crazy. But we used to go down there all the time. He said, "Hey, cousin, you coming down? Come on down here, man. I want to show the boys down here you can play, come on down." And I used to go down and I got a chance to play against Tiny when I was younger and go down there and compete in the Bronx. And then in Brooklyn it was Bernard, Albert, and Bernard and all the great players in Brooklyn back there in the day. It was just a great experience to see where I was just going down there hang out with him, man. He gonna show me off in the playground. I mean, so they said to me, "Hey man, where you from, man? You pretty good. Where you from?" I said, I'm from Mount Vernon. "Oh, you in the country?"
Well, we know about Mount Vernon, y'all. We know about y'all rep, man.
Yeah, but your age, yeah, but when my age, I mean, they thought Mount Vernon was in the country. They thought I lived 4-5 hours away, man. That was just like 20 minutes away. Oh man, but those were great times going to Brooklyn. My cousins swear by Brooklyn, and their experience there, they loved it. But and yeah, that was some crazy experiences back then, man. And I actually one night, my aunt had got married, and my aunt Joyce on my mother's side got married, and so we said we're gonna go down to Bobby's, and my aunt was gonna drive us down there, not the one that got married, but Bobby's mother. And we got in the car with her. I don't know why my mother let me get in the car with my two cousins and go down there. I never got to Brooklyn that fast, man. I thought we took a leader jet. I thought I was gonna die that night, man. She was driving so crazy. And then we got there, and she sent us out to the store, and we were at the store, coming out the store, and I was like, my cousin said, "Hey, you know that guy right there? He's standing on the corner." I was like, "Nah, who is that?" He said, "That's Fly Williams, man."
Wow.
And I always admired Fly Williams because one of the greatest high school games I ever seen was Earl Tatum, right, against Fly Williams. Glen Springs Academy against Mount Vernon High School, and Fly had like 40, right, and Earl had 35, and we ended up beating them by 10. And it is just great stories and great times back then, man. Tough times, but great times. And so, but anyway, let's continue now. Now, getting into the careers. Now, think about all that. You get educated, get into the careers, man, and start out with where you start out in your career, and then kind of work at what you're doing now, and all the things that you can make so many things.
Yeah, I was a student activist. Got one of the things, real quick, and I know sometimes I get long-winded with these answers, but I never forget part of my reading with this whole father thing is when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. We was on a road trip on a team bus. And I remember going into a bookstore and I saw the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I read the book, and that became very inspiring because I wanted to understand this whole dynamics of just the world and, and just racial, understanding. And so I felt that my concern about the way life is, how I grew up, why the world is this way, why some people living in projects, why some people doing well when I went to these predominantly white institutions, like why some people have, some people don't. And one of the things, and I'm quite sure you probably experienced this in college as well. So the white kids used to always make little comments like, the only reason why you here because you play basketball. The only reason why you here because, you poor and they giving out, free scholarships and we got to pay for our education. I used to hear that, and so I wanted to better understand, just race relations and stuff like that. So I ended up becoming the president of the Black Student Union back during that time when Nelson Mandela was, fighting for his relief and all the stuff that was going on in South Apartheid and things like that. South Africa with apartheid. And just started dealing with a lot of things going on. Jesse Jackson at that time was, on his second run, to be president. And so I started really getting involved, from an activist standpoint. And that kind of, started propelling me. So my degree, actually, my study was law. So I was, a law student. And I also was political science. And so all that started shaping. I started learning, I started reading and all that kind of stuff. So I never forget, I led my first protests, with the Black students against the administration. We wanted more Black things on campus, studies, resources, cultural activities. And so when I graduated, I started working with a law firm and just kind of with family court and working in the community. And I just kept pulling at me like something's going wrong with the Black community and how we're seen and the lives that we're living. Like, what are the policies and the politics around this stuff? I wanted to learn and really get deeper into that. So my political life and career started projecting more and more in that area. I did help Jesse Jackson. I was one of his top 4 student campaign reps when he's running in '88. I was one of his national reps, you know, and I started just really getting more and more around it. Then when the hip hop era came, all that conscious hip hop with, you know, Public Enemy and all of them, I started really getting conscious. And then that propelled me to started shifting gears around the law work that I really was interested in, sports, entertainment, and all that kind of stuff. I want to be more of an activist, and how can I use my, you know, academics and law and just activism to really help impact Black people's lives, you know, much better. And that began to really just change me and reroute me, Lowe's, into a different direction. So I started my own youth program. I started giving back to kids, feeding kids, giving them food, buying kids clothes, you know, just whatever I can do, exposing them to different things. I went back to Brooklyn. I started adopting schools, man, just whatever I can do to help these kids, you know, to see a better way, you know, better opportunities, get better exposure. And that started just to propel me, you know, as an activist and a leader, and still stay around sports, but I want to do it more from a community relations standpoint, especially pulling in Black community. And that was my goal, to do that. I wanted to stay active around all the politics and everything that's going on related to Black people, because I didn't want my life and how I grew up to just be, you know, the anomaly. I just want, you know, I know this was happening to all of us. And I wanted to say, you know what, if I made it out from all that I've done, I can reach back and help with policies and politics and activism to do that, and then use my law and my educational background, you know, to help make that happen. And so through the NBA and the Knicks, I was able to kind of stay in my lane around making sure that the stuff that I do will be directly connected to impacting and empowering Black youth, Black fathers, the Black community. And I've been doing that for 20 years. And of course, I partnered with Allen Houston, you know, to do that through his foundation. And then that propelled me back in 2005, 6, when Obama, you know, decided he wanted to run for president and started making a name for himself. At that time, CNN honored me as a world hero when they came up with the program CNN Heroes for me, adopting the schools and all that give back. And at the same time, President Obama announced he was running. So the president saw that CNN. He saw all that documentary stuff on me. And when he got elected, during the first June of his first term, he wanted to address this issue of fatherhood. So he invited certain people to the White House to sit with him to discuss this issue of fatherhood. Going back to this divine purpose and faith,
that's right.
How
that's
God
right.
moved things. I was one of the ones invited. You had Dwayne Wade, Lonzo Mourning, a lot of the hip hop people, a lot of different ones there. But I was there, and I remember God saying to me, "You're not here to just jump up and down over the first Black president. You're not here with all this fanfare. You're here for a reason." So when the president started asking, I want to really address this father stuff, I was one of the ones who raised my hand and really spoke strongly about this issue. And he zeroed in on me. Then he had another meeting that he had to get deeper into this work. I got called back. And then when the president decided that he wanted to actually create a White House initiative addressing fatherhood and mentoring of Black boys in the country, I got the call back, Lo, that the president wanted me to work with his administration on this issue that would change the trajectory and narrative around fatherhood, Black fatherhood, and these young Black boys and Black families out here, man. And that, to me, going back to this basketball thing, God is saying, I got something for you. I know the NBA and I know all the stuff you've been through, but I got something that's going to really, really make you feel good. And working with the president for 8 years, man, just to change the landscape of fatherhood was something very, very amazing. That picture there was actually with his stern looking face. We was talking about him ending his term, and we was into a deep conversation about this whole father stuff, and he's getting ready to leave office, and what did this whole journey mean? And he and I just kind of embraced, and we both had this serious look at each other, like, you know, it's about the end, but we did do a lot of great work together. And those 8 years, one of the proudest moments, Lowe's, in my life. And that picture is a picture of some of my fraternity leaders where we met with the president in 2011, And that's the only picture he ever took with Black men, during his 8 years, because we wanted to make sure that Black men stood with him around this issue of fatherhood and mentoring. And so I organized my fraternity leadership to be with the president there in DC with that photo to partner with him in making sure we address this issue. And no greater issue in this country. Fatherhood itself is important, whether you're Black, Hispanic, whatever, but no more damaging of fatherhood that has taken place in our country than in the Black community and with Black fathers. And so the president wanted to make sure that we really, really address that. And he wanted to use my story and all the other things around this issue and all the data that was negative and just kind of say, how can we turn this thing around father in our country? And I say we made a lot of strides, made a lot of progress. We headed in the right direction with this thing. And I was just glad to be on that level to help make that happen. I was glad to work with David Stern at the time, now Adam Silver, with Allen Houston and Knicks to actually host fatherhood initiatives and programs in the NBA and at the New York Knicks. Every home game, I'm bringing in Black fathers with those Black sons and daughters for them to enjoy a great night out to celebrate in front of 19,000 fans. Just the whole value and importance of father. There you go. Yep. And that's what it is. My target has been Black fathers around all that white sports institution to bring that kind of narrative there. And that's just what basketball really is all about, man, and as people see in those pictures. But that's the journey, man, from my education, from graduating to what I've been doing for the last, 30 years of my life, man. It's just been fatherhood. And how do we just change that landscape and just produce great men like yourself?
Yeah. And I've been a part with you guys, a part of the Allen Houston
Fathers Knows Best.
Fathers Knows Best, yeah. And at one time, I was down there with Ben Gordon.
I remember.
And Ben said, and Ben mentioned me like a father, and then I was down with my son Isaiah, who came down in his wheelchair and everything, and started shooting ball and hanging out, man, and doing the same drills the able-bodied kids was doing. And he ended up winning the Spirit Award for the Allen Houston Fatherhood Legacy program. So, yeah, man, you guys have done some tremendous job. And I've been down to the Garden where you've been able to bring some of those kids out. And I'm thankful to you and to Allen as well, because many people don't know that every year for as long as I've known Allen and been a part of the program, Allen donated every year a package that allows a father to come down with his son to the Garden, be on the floor while the Knicks is practicing and stuff like that, beat some players, take some pictures, and just had a great experience. We call it the Allen Houston Legacy Fatherhood.
The Tickets Together program. Yes. You're right. We always made sure for your auctions, we gave you games, and I would host those games, man.
Yeah, those was awesome. I want to say thank you too. And then I think there's Daryl Jacobs told me to tell you hello.
Oh, that's my dude.
And I think you can see it at the bottom there. And then we had David Perdue, right? He said, Thabiti, you have chosen the good part. Your testimony have reached many than beyond your sphere of influence.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the love.
So, yeah, that's one of my guys. He's on my men's call every Wednesday evening, man. And thanks for your support to everybody out there, man. This has been awesome, man. And what you were doing, and here's a quick question: is since President Obama has left, right? How have you kept up, or how has he kept up with continuing the fight for this fatherhood initiative? Is it still going on? Was there some residual effects from that? Because I know that Mount Vernon has a program.
The My Brother's Keeper.
My Brother's Keeper, and also New Rochelle has a program, and also Yonkers has a program.
The My Brother's Keeper.
My Brother's Keepers, yes.
Yeah. Here's a couple of things. One, yes, I'm still with the president. So when he shifted to the foundation, he brought the My Brother's Keeper under the foundation with the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, which is now, a nonprofit, public entity, as part of the Obama Foundation. So the My Brother's Keeper, which is still strong, I sit on the governing board of the My Brother's Keeper. It's around how do we work with young men, and young boys of color. So now the fatherhood piece, which came before, My Brother's Keeper came right after Trayvon Martin got killed. So the president said, we got to do something about young black boys. So in 2014, 13-14, he created the My Brother's Keeper. So when he came into office, 2008-9, first term was the fatherhood piece. So what happened is, and this is the thing we got to figure out in the black community, when we talking about working with young black boys, we got to figure out, so when we guiding them and working with them, we got to do a couple of things. We got to, one, get those boys' fathers back into their lives. That has to be the fathered piece. A lot of times we are mentoring boys with no interest around connecting the fathers back. We just take the pride that the boy ain't got no father, he's not around, we're going to mentor him, we're going to guide him, and then that's that. But what we realize is that that's not really totally fulfilling that young man, because if he still has this quest for his father and he still is trying to get that relationship and get some closure on that, we have to address that. And there's a lot of fathers out there who are still trying to connect with their sons and their children, and we have to create space for that. So I'm still working within the fatherhood movement across the country. There's a lot of powerful father leaders, organizations across this country that's alive and well, and we're still pushing father. Now, we lost some of the president's juice on that because of his name and stature. When he pushes something, everybody pays attention, but we're still out here fighting and pushing. The president's still committed to fatherhood through the My Brother's Keeper. But I just think that we got to do a little bit more. And I got to be honest, Lowe's, and I can talk with you more about this. I'm trying to do more around how can I keep the legacy what the president brought in place, and what can I do in my lane to keep pushing fatherhood from my position. And I just have to keep pushing and doing more. And God has been really tapping into my spirit around that I need to continue to do more, whether it's with Obama, without Obama, is that, father's still important. I just need to figure out how to keep pushing that so that it's still in front of us, in our country, and especially in our communities. And so, but that's kind of where things are, with fatherhood. We're still pushing. We still need a lot of support. We need resources. We need funding. We need champions like the president, so, but we're still pushing, this work very, very hard.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether or not President Obama would set up for you guys a meeting with the president now.
He wasn't interested.
He wasn't interested.
Yeah, these elected officials, they don't like to. They want to carve out their own legacy and niche from their predecessors. So even though President Biden was the vice president around all of that father stuff, when I was at the administration, he was around all that father stuff. But he didn't want to continue to have people connecting his presidency to Obama with Obama's initiative. Because we reached out when he was campaigning, when he got into the office, we said, President Biden, can you push at least this initiative, whether it's My Brother's Keeper, working with young men, change the name, do whatever you want, let's just, push it. But the other thing is, and I got to make sure I'm politically correct when I say this, I got to say it right without offending. And I know your wife is sitting there too. Here's what happened. And you noticed this. The black women voters has put that man in office. And they feel this is their time now. Obama was pushing a lot of male stuff. So the women are saying, we need a black woman vice president. You see what's going on right now. He's got to get a Supreme Court justice nominee as a black woman. So he has a lot of black women in his administration. So black women saying it's our time now. So and I think they're doing it from a position of just making sure that they continue pushing their agenda. And at the same time, we just got to create a medium in the middle where we both can still push each other. It can't be a either or, but let's just continue to push each other. But I think Biden right now has been leaning more towards his commitment towards, you know, black women and just women in general, mainly black women. So the male stuff, he's kind of chilling out on that right now. We just got to enter it at the right time, you know, the right way to do that with him.
I think that's important. I think his initiative on black women is very important.
Yes, yes.
But on the other hand of it, you can't have one, like you said earlier, you can't have one without the other. And when you look at, he was here in New York, right? And they was pushing how to stop the violence, right? And, you know, not having a father is a direct reflection of the violence. And in New York, in Chicago, in LA, everywhere, right? Fatherhood is even if he expanded it, you know, to open it up to more cultures, because the Hispanic cultures, that's important there. I mean, so I think that would be a good look. And I know that in 4 years, in 8 years of President Obama, there's so many things to put your hand on, right? You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I understand, right, trying to focus on some, you know, directly on some things. But yeah, I think that these young men do need, you know, this initiative to continue, right? And I don't know what it is, man. If somebody's doing something good in an administration before you, right? I was doing good in it. Let me keep that, and let me add this, right? Because you already have the mechanics in place already, just to keep going. Okay, go ahead and do it. I'm gonna put my hand on it. You know, it's not my number one thing, but we want to keep it going, right? And then start a new initiative, right? So, yeah,
I think also we have to, as men, I say this to fathers all the time. The thing that women has a leg up on us, they know how to get their voice heard. They know how to mobilize. They know how to vote. They know how to get out there and do their thing. We have to be a stronger voice to get in front of people with a non-negotiable. Here's what we want. Here's what we're trying to do. Be out front. We are a strong voting bloc. And statistically, you know, we not as a strong voting bloc as we should be compared to women, but we are good. I mean, we did a good job with getting Biden in office, but I think we have to do more in the father movement among men that we need to rally around. Just like, for an example, in New York City, with all this violence. I said to some of the father leaders, we need to get out there and just show that, hey, as fathers and men, we are just as concerned about this community violence. So now that draws attention. So we just have to do a little bit more, you know, on our side as men and fathers and leaders, you know, to kind of just keep pushing our platform and our voice so that people will, you know, will have no choice but to hear us.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you heard of the King movement, Chris Broussard.
Yes.
That may be should be maybe with Chris is a topic of conversation in regards to fathers, because, you know, the King movement is around, you know, being men of God, you know, being a man of God, being a, you know, good father, a good husband, a good father, impact your home, impact your church, impact your community, impact this world. And so that may be something to have a conversation, how to maybe the King movement can begin to look at a fatherhood initiative as well.
Right.
You know,
right.
something to think about. But let's jump over to, you've been awesome, man. So let's jump over there. I know you got some curiosity questions.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yes. I want to pick your brain, man, because your intelligence is so high. So I definitely want to ask you a couple of things.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your thoughts on the current situation with the Miami coach, Dolphins coach, with this whole racial thing of how black coaches are treated in the NFL. And this is all across, professional sports. You've seen it on a collegiate level. What is your thoughts, in terms of just this? We in 2022 still fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. What is your thoughts? Why we keep fighting for this? And what is your thoughts on Flores? The stance you take, because it's gaining a lot of conversation.
Well, yeah, when I first heard it, you know what? It's something about you judge the spirit by the spirit, or you sense in a person's spirit, or we talking about a frequency or a vibration. Every time that I've watched the Miami Dolphins, right, and they show the sideline, and I seen the coach, right, in my spirit, I just felt like something's not comfortable with him. Just when you look at his face, he didn't seem like he was enjoying. It seemed like he had a love for the game, but he wasn't enjoying it. Right? He just seemed like he was under some certain type of pressure. And so for 2 years, I've seen him on several occasions look like that. Even if they won and they was talking to him, he always had that look on his face, like, something was wrong. And so when he came out, I mean, to me, yeah, it was a surprise. What surprised me was he had 2 winning season, and he was the first one fired. I mean, before the season, before we got to the playoffs, he was the first one fired, and I was like, wow. And then I listened to some of the interviews when people started talking about him. Right. And it was amazing how they spoke about his integrity, his humility, and his development of men. It was so much said. I was surprised that he didn't get another opportunity to grow that program to that next level. So, yeah, it was encouraging, and risky that he took the stand. Right. I'm just hopeful that as he takes the stand, it can't, it can't be one. You understand what I'm saying? It can't be one person saying it. I mean, it's always one. Colin Kaepernick said it, his career went boom, and of course he after he said it calls for a conversation. Ultimately, I thought he should have been back in playing football. Ultimately. Because technically he didn't do anything wrong. So I'm hoping that, people will hear what he's saying. And I'm hoping that if you have had an experience like this, I mean, at that level, whether it be basketball or football or baseball, as an African-American male, right, you should be able to say something to be supportive of, what he's experiencing, because he's not the only one experiencing it, and so I was proud that he stood up. Of course, there's always risk. I'm hoping that somebody has the courage, with 3 more spots or 2 more spots open, have the courage to look at that and say, and not choose him just because of what he said. Right. But you turn around and say, look at the whole person, and choose him because he's a good coach. And he's a man of integrity, and he's a man, not that he's that he's a black man, but he's a man who could coach your team, and so, yeah, that was, yeah.
Let me ask you another quick curiosity question. So I understand on our side, why is it, in your opinion, why is white folks taking too long to say, we got to open this up more, we got to open up more opportunities, it's okay? What's holding them up?
Well, I think that the conversation has always been around, getting to know people, regardless of color. I mentioned earlier today when I was talking to my sons earlier, right? And I had made the suggestion. They said, well, if we're more than just a product or service on a field or court, right? And we're helping to support your bottom line, right? Then if the owner really want to know me as a player, when if the league is 75% African Americans, then we can come off our booth, pin wherever we are, and come down and walk on that field and meet the men that work for you, and spend some time around and experience them. More than I'm just a football player who's making your bottom line work, right? But I want to know who's working for me, right? And if they're not willing to come out the penthouse or wherever they are, and come down on the field and get to know players, if they're not doing that, they're not gonna know the players. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they got a bunch of football players, but I'm saying over the years, man, you've had to make a connection with somebody African American, man, that that change your thoughts about how you feel about if I'm going to select this guy to play. You selected me to play for you,
right?
But you're not going to select me to work for you. That's just.
Do you think it's a contradictory where the NBA, the NFL, the country just celebrated Martin Luther King again, what he stood for, what he stands for, equals. Do you think that's a contradictory between what they keep saying about how life should be versus their actions? I mean, so what is your thoughts about that? I mean, it's like, where's the consistency?
Well, I mean, after a while, man, we all know what Dr. King stands for. I mean, it's impossible for any owner or any business person, any creed or color, right, to not know what Dr. King stood for. I mean, it's in everything, is everywhere, and the reality of it is that even all that, right, people still haven't changed. And that's sad. That's the sad part about it, that you see all that we're trying to unify an America, right? We're trying to bring together America, right? So that we appreciate each other, and here we are today. And in some instances, it hasn't happened. So, with me personally, man, I just thought that, sometimes when people, they just look at you, oh, he's a player, right? And I think a lot of times people used to look at, how great a basketball player was. Oh, he's a basketball player. He's a basketball player. And they don't realize, man, I'm an intelligent person. Number one, I graduated, I got a degree, right? But you still looking like I can't run your business. Right? I mean, and yeah, so that's a this is forever. Right? This is forever. So you got some basketball curiosity question before we get off? We got a couple more minutes here.
Yeah. And you and I talk about this a lot. From the time you played, and we've been having a lot of side conversation on this, the mindset of these players today versus the mindset that you had during your time. I mean, you could definitely clearly see the distinction, in terms of how they handle like some of the guys on the Knicks, how they handling adversity, how they handling, their certain roles and things like that. How do you, from a basketball perspective, with all the basketball stuff that you've been through, what is your assessment of what it took and what drove you to play on all highest levels and some of the greatest coaches like Phil Jackson compared to these guys, man? Like, how, what is your thoughts on that? Your mindset versus theirs now.
Well, my mindset was I'm doing it for family. It's for me, it's family. and it's also community, right? I'm at this highest level, and I want to compete at this highest level because I want to be a blessing to my family, and I also want to be a blessing to my community, right? And when I say community, right, I mean that I don't, even though I'm at this level, I'm not, this level is not going to cause for me to forget about community. That means if, you know, what is it going to take when I always enjoyed, like when people, I'm leaving the court and there's a little kid there, you know, or there's kids there, or regardless. And I'm walking through. I always felt the need, right? That, you know, I imagine if I was that little kid in the crowd, right? And I'm watching you on television. I even got your jersey on, your hat, whatever I have on, that kid admires me, right? And they should admire me not just as a player, but they need to know that I'm a good person too. So when I give them 5, right, or I stop to sign their autograph, right, that means something to that kid, right? And so I never miss an opportunity to sign that autograph or shake that kid's hand or take a picture. I never miss an opportunity to take the time, regardless of whether I won or whether I lost, right? And if they wanted me to go, hey, we need you to go to speak at this community center. We need you to go speak at this high school. You know, think about it. We're practicing 2 to 3 hours a day, right? And we can't take an hour to go to a church, a school, a community center, at least a couple of times a week, right? Because there's kids just sitting there waiting, you know, for you to come in there. You're making their dream come true. You know, you're inspiring them. So to see athletes today who won't just walk through, you know, or even come back, say, I'll be right back. Right. But you should be engaged in community when you're a player. Right. And you should not avoid that, because when it's done and nobody knows who you are, you're going to hope that some little kid comes up to you and say, hey, man, could I have your autograph? I remember you. Right. Well, they're not going to remember you. Right. So that's my perspective on it. And so
I do have one last curiosity question.
Okay.
With this whole subject on fatherhood, it's a 2-part. What was some of your, experiences, with your dad that, you felt, that really, really, demonstrated fatherhood to you, like, between you and your dad? And what was some of your, greatest joys as a father?
Well, number one, my mom and dad, first of all, my mom and dad separated when I was 9 or 10. They separated and got divorced. It was a whole domestic violence issue. But before then, before I could experience that or know what I was experiencing, or didn't really know, but before that, my father was my hero. I mean, we drive to North Carolina. I wanted to drive like him. I wanted to talk like him. I wanted to move. He was a big car guy, fixing cars. He could fix anything. I wanted to be like my dad. You know what I'm saying? And so, I was excited and proud, until later on, as I got older, I started to see this other side, but I had some moments of my dad. And then here's the other part of for me. My dad had a drinking problem. So, and it caused, for whatever he was experiencing, he took it out on family and stuff like that. But I got to really see the real side of my dad when I had my kids. He was sober, and my dad used to pick up my kids from school every Friday and take them to McDonald's. Right. So I seen what my dad really wanted to be in my life but watching how he treated my kids. You know, and I just wished, like you, my father seen me play one time as a player, you know, and I was playing in the CBA then. So, so I wanted more than anything for my dad to be there and to give me some questions. But again, I thank my mom, you know, for being present, you know, and being there for me. So, and the other part of that question was,
your joys, man, of being a father.
man, let me tell you something. From the time my wife gave birth, my first daughter, Michelle, and she'll tell you, because before then I was opening the car door for her and, you know, helping her get in the car and all that stuff. Right. And when we had our first daughter, Michelle, and we were leaving the hospital, right, I was like, okay, babe, you got to get in the car, you know, because I had my baby in my head, you know, like that. You got to get in there for yourself, you know. And it was like we both said it, like she had always been there, right? And for me, and I would say my wife too, is that we don't know what we would be or who we would be without our kids. Right. And I mean, they're the reason why we live, man. You know, they're the reason why we kind of move and do the things we do, man, because that's how much we love our kids. And now, man, the icing on the cake is to have grandkids.
Wow.
I was just thinking about my mom, man. I said, like, I can be like my mom, man. She's 82. I could be like her because she's seen her kids have kids. And their kids have kids. I mean, she got great grandkids. So, I mean, if she could do that, I'm like, I'm trying. That's what I want to do. I want to see those great grandkids. You know, I want to be available to see those great grandkids. And I want to know that I had an impact in society that made it better for them. Yeah. So that's it, man. So we over my time, man.
I'm sorry about that, man.
But no, that was good, man. You brought out something. We went overtime. Yeah, we went overtime. And so, okay. Boone, I want to say thank you, man. I appreciate you, man. I'm sure a lot of individuals on this who are looking at it now has been blessed. And I know I've been blessed, man. I've been touched immensely. And I know a number of people who will see this in the future will be blessed as well. So thank you for all that you do, man. Keep it up.
Yeah.
And if I can be a help, let me know, man.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna call you off the record. You inspired me as always. You got my wheels turning on some things. And I'm just glad that, you know, you and your wife allowed me to kind of express. There used to be a time where, talking about my mother, you know, suicide and all that kind of stuff, and used to be a time where I would just totally break down. I couldn't handle it. And because I knew I wasn't totally healed from that, but I'm able to do it now from a position of, you know, that it can help somebody, you know, and it helps put in perspective, you know, what I've gone through. And so, and just all the stuff that I've gone through. So I apologize for, you know, going a little bit longer in some of the questions because I was trying to squeeze so much in to the answer. And so I apologize, you know, for that. And hopefully we could do a part 2 or another opportunity. Because again, it was just so much more, you know, that, you know, I wanted to ask you and we could talk about. But, you know, you just let me know, you know,
okay,
with your program. But thank you so much. I appreciate your wife, you know, thank you.
And we'll stay on, and I'm going to close out here. And, man, this has been awesome. So thank you. As you know, each week I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for your support. Thank you for showing up every Sunday, man. I hope that this has been a blessing. We went a little overtime, but you know, Boone's story is so amazing, and just to see God work in his life, man, has just been awesome. And so I'm looking forward to next week. We're going to be early next week. I think we're doing the Super Bowl show. I think it's going to be at 2:00. on Sunday, so everybody can get there and enjoy the Super Bowl. I'm trying to confirm my guests for the Super Bowl, and as soon as I get my confirmation, I'll let you guys know. But it's going to be a great show anyway. So again, God bless you. I love you guys, and see you next week.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.